All right, so this is how you feed a starter. So I took this out of the refrigerator about 2 or 3 hours ago, and it's already started to expand. As you can see, the glass is a little over half full. So to give you your starter, I've got a nice clean jar. Always, the trick is always do it in jars. Don't do it in metal. So you can see it's real gooey. It's almost like glue. So what I'm going to do is scoop half of this out. So every time you feed it, you got to scoop half out. So it's a great opportunity to sort of scoop some out to cook with, and then refeed your starter, and then put your original starter back in the refrigerator. So let me see if I can get this stuff out. I try not to touch it as much as possible because it is a living yeast, so I try not to contaminate it. And I just use this same glass over and over and over again. Sometimes it sort of builds up around the top, and I'll just take a knife and scrape it out. I don't like to let it drop in there. So I got about equal amounts in each jar now. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a nice feeding. So to feed it, I use a bread flour, but you can also use wheat flour. Bread flour is a little bit cheaper and works just as good. If you read some directions, they say always use wheat, but you know, not all sourdoughs are necessarily all wheat. Some of them, as a matter of fact, most of them tend to do better with a little bit of each. So I got about a half a cup of flour. I'm gonna dump that into the original. I'm gonna do another half a cup. Whoop. And there it went, a half a cup on the counter. I'm gonna put this into the new. Since I'm making a mess, I'm not gonna worry about being nice and clean with it right now. And then the next thing is you want to use non-chlorinated water. So don't use tap water, use a bottled water. It needs to be at room temperature. Put in a 1/4 cup. And that's really about it. Then you stir it. Make sure you mix it in real good. And then leave it uncovered. I usually put a paper towel on top. But what you're going to see over the next 4 to 6 hours, you're going to see this stuff start to work. And so what happens is the yeast gets fired up. They get active again because there's new food in the hopper. And you'll see it rise, you'll see it double. So that's the reason why you got to pull out half every single time, because it will rise out of the jar if you don't keep it down. So they say keep about a half a cup inside. So what I do is I always end up doing this same scenario. So I've got my starter that I'm gonna let rise, and then I'm gonna put it in the refrigerator later on tonight. And then I've got my starter that I'm gonna cook with. And so it's best to cook with this starter when it is at the fully risen point. And so that's what they call a hydrated starter. So that's when it's the best time to use it. If you can't get around to it, the best thing to do is, you really have to plan sourdough the day in advance. So if you can't get around to it that particular day, or their timing's not right, you're really just gonna have to put it back in the fridge and then go through the same process on the next day tomorrow. So that's pretty much it. I'll cover it with paper towels, and then when I go in the fridge, you put your glass back on, and it's good for a week. It doesn't need to be fed once in a week. Good luck.